Peter, the fine-tuning of the universe is something that many people are talking about with great energy and enthusiasm, and I have to tell you, I've been a bit overwhelmed by all the different views that I've had on this. I was rather fascinated to read where you called one of the arguments that are used one of the most annoyingly obtuse, if I have the words correct, arguments in the history of philosophy. Why did you say that?
Well, I meant this. This was the argument. Some people have suggested, that, of course, the fine-tuning refers to the apparently very precise values that the constants in the laws of physics have, just the right ones to allow life to exist. But some have said that shouldn't be surprising. We don't need to look for an explanation for this fact, because after all, A, they had to have some value, B, that any given set of precise values is as improbable as any other. Why be astonished because one particular improbable set of values turned up? The reason this is annoyingly obtuse is that it embodies a kind of reasoning that nobody would engage in the ordinary business of life. I like to ask my students in philosophy of religion classes what they would think of the following piece of reasoning. I say, suppose it's your regular Thursday night poker game and a stranger comes into the table, gets 4 royal flushes and the 4 suits in a row, completely cleans out everybody at the table, and then sticks the money in his pocket and prepares to walk away. You move to restrain him, and he says, look, you shouldn't think that I cheated here. You shouldn't think that I dictated what these cards were, because 4 royal flushes in a row has exactly the same probability as any 4 given hands in a row. If I'd had 4 average, undistinguished hands in a row, you wouldn't have thought that required any explanation in terms of cheating. Say, well, you shouldn't think, but my 4 royal flushes were just another set of 4 hands in a row, as improbable as any other, so you shouldn't think that requires any explanation. Nobody would accept that as a piece of reasoning. I don't see why anybody should take any more seriously the idea that these, if it's actually true, as we're told, that these constants and these parameters in the laws of physics are set to astonishingly precise values, and if there were any different combination of values, very much different, then life would be impossible. If that's indeed true, then the statement that we shouldn't be puzzled by that because it's just as improbable as any other set of values is just as improbable. I don't see how anybody can take that argument seriously, or rather, I think the reason has to be there. They want very much for the conclusion to be true.
Okay, so how do you look upon the fine-tuning argument in this astonishing collection of constants, which seems so finely tuned to the emergence of life and mind, for that matter?
Well, what is the argument? Here's something like this, I suppose. We have this phenomenon, fine-tuning. What's the best explanation for it? Why a fine-tuner? That is an intelligent being who wanted there to be something, presumably life, or organic life, or intelligent life, or like us. So that being set those values to those very precise, or set those parameters to those very precise values, or maybe created a universe containing parameters with just those precise values. That's an inference to the best explanation. You're saying, here's a phenomenon. The best explanation we can think of for that phenomenon is this, therefore, certainly, or at least probably, this being, in this case, an external designer of the universe.
Now, as you know, there's a large body of scientific information from cosmologists that the laws of physics seem to suggest multiple universes through inflation theory, chaotic inflation theory, through various cyclical mechanisms that create multiple Big Bangs. There's a whole series of different causative ways that one can have multiple universes, and if you unite multiple universes with the laws of chance and assume that multiple universes can reset the laws of physics all the time, and you do this huge numbers of times, indeed an infinite number of times, then that with observational selection that we only can be in universes that we exist in, and that's where we make our observations, eliminates such an inference to the best explanation as to an intelligent design.
Yep, I think you've given just the answer to that question that I would have given to that question. I don't know that it's true that the laws of physics allow these things. I'll defer to physicists on that. I would find it more convincing if they said they don't rule them out, or there's no reason that we can find in the laws of physics to rule out these things. But at any rate, the universe could be vast. It could be that these constants change very slowly. It could, as you go out, and that we happen to be in one of the inhabitable pockets in the universe. It could be that the universe split up at the time of the Big Bang into many domains in which there are many local constants. Naturally, we're in one of the inhabitable pockets in such a total reality. It could be that there's some kind of thing that isn't a universe itself, but in which universes grow, like bubbles in boiling porridge. They all have different. They all have different ones, and in any of these cases, in very, very rare cases, you find the law set just right. This, I think, if the phenomenon is that we observe ourselves, we observe the existence of a place in which the laws are set like this, then I think that's an equally good explanation. I don't see that one of these two explanations is better than the other.
So you would really, at least to a first approximation, would judge them on the same level?
I don't know that I'm qualified to say, how good the evidence is for multiple universes. Let's say I don't see any reason to think that it's not at least as good an explanation as there being an intelligent designer who produced this one universe or this one domain with the laws like this. It's at least as good as that, right? So at any rate, anybody who wants to infer to the best explanation can't conclude from this argument that there exists an intelligent designer.
And the traditional teleological argument as demonstrating the existence of God, one of the classical arguments for God's existence, or its more modern incarnations as arguments from design. Does this undercut those arguments, or how do you view those traditional arguments?
It's simply a version of them. It's one kind of design argument. It depends on a different set of facts from earlier design arguments, which generally pointed to biological structure rather than to some features of the laws of physics or the very great degree of smoothness from which the world came out of the Big Bang or various other large-scale features of the universe. The earlier arguments tended to be analogical rather than inferences to the best explanation. A parrot is really very much like a personal computer. Well, the personal computer had a designer, an intelligent designer, so the parrot, being very much like the personal computer, probably had an intelligent designer too. Of course, you can ask in this case, really, is the parrot all that much like the computer? You can ask, are there explanations available in the case of the parrot that aren't available in the case of the computer, and so on.
Do you see the teleological argument, the argument from design, as an important one in your quiver of beliefs, or quiver of arguments that bring about your belief in God?
Naturally, as a theist, I'm perfectly comfortable with all this fine-tuning going on, just what you'd expect, but it's a philosophical argument, right? I mean, I think I have to admit that as a philosopher, I think I'm in a position to say this, if anyone is, you'd be crazy to believe anything of ultimate significance on the basis of a philosophical argument. What could we look at as evidence that philosophy is in a position to provide that kind of foundation for our beliefs about things? I don't think the teleological argument in any of its, say the fine-tuning argument, let's say, I don't think that it's any worse than most philosophical arguments. I mean, it's very suggestive. That's an important, maybe it's literally false, that this is the best explanation. Maybe there's something that's at least a tie. Still, it calls our attention to interesting things about reality, but it's not, we have all kinds of philosophical arguments. You have the private language argument, you have the consequence argument about free will, you have the ontological argument. All these arguments have had their defenders and their detractors. None of them has won universal assent. I suppose the teleological argument is about as good as any of them.